Good morning, everyone. This is Britt Simon. So just have a few minutes. I thought I'd jump online, as I say, and take some of your questions, see if any of you have any questions I can answer for you about the DV lottery and how to get your green card. Let me just say right from the beginning, DV 2020 and DV 2021 have no news on that. So we're still waiting. And there's nothing that can be done to rush the appeals court. So that's the answer if you're going to ask about DV 2020 or 21. So you may want to know about DV 2024 processing. And I posted what I think is a pretty important video yesterday. In fact, like right now, all the videos I'm posting are important that you pay attention. I had explained about one particular case yesterday in the early part of my video, where I think people are going to get trapped at low-performing embassies, and some people have not understood yet why that's happening, and they don't know how to handle it, and they're just going to watch their green cards just disappear, and that makes me, frankly, pretty sad. So there you go. So let's take some questions, and I'll try and keep up with questions. Do you think Africa will go current this year? No, I don't. I've already explained my position on that. I made a series of videos a couple of weeks ago, so you can go and have a look at that video, which I posted around about Africa, and see why I think it won't go current. I mean, there's just no reason it's going to go current. There's no need for it to go current. DV21 is lost. We don't have any hope. It's not lost if you were in the lawsuit. We actually won the lawsuit, right? So now it's a question of how the appeal is decided. So don't give up hope at this point. Nice to see you too, Radar. Okay, can you please talk about the double transfer? I'm nervous of talking about these things because this is playing the system a little bit. But and I don't want to do anything that would upset KCC in a sense, because I know that they watch my videos occasionally, and I've had conversations with them in the past, and so I don't want to sort of make it very obvious that I'm suggesting to do things. But let me just give you some examples of what some people in the past have done. Let's say in the old days, somebody was at country A and they realized that country A was not going to get to their case. What those people did was they contacted KCC saying that they have moved to country B. Now, I don't know whether they'd moved to country B or not, right? But they moved to country B. Country B was a well-performing embassy, right? So in this time, for example, if we make country A and country B real, let's say you're in Accra, right? And you have some friends or relatives in Nairobi, and you can move to Nairobi. So and your case number is, let's say, case number 28,000, 29,000. You're pretty much certain at this point that Accra are not going to get to your case number because your case number is already current. But for whatever reason, your case is not processed yet, and therefore you're not locked into the AV status. So you must do what I'm about to explain to you before you get into AV status. Typically, that means don't wait to be current, right? And so this is probably more relevant for someone who's, let's say, at case number 45,000. They're not current yet. And so it doesn't matter whether the DS-260 is processed. But anyway, so you contact KCC saying you want to unlock your DS-260 and you change your address to being in Nairobi. That means you're going to be scheduled in the Nairobi embassy. But maybe you return to Accra, right? Once you have been scheduled at Nairobi embassy. So you've returned to Accra, and now it would be more convenient for you to be interviewed in Accra, right? And so you contact Accra embassy and say, hey, I want to transfer, I'm scheduled already in Nairobi, I want to transfer my case to you. And they will agree to that, believe it or not, they will agree. and Nairobi will then, once you've got agreement from Accra, you contact Nairobi, who will release the case and transfer the case to Accra. And KCC are not involved in that. That's called a transfer. That transfer happens between embassies. It's got nothing to do with KCC. So KCC is not able to impose the rules that they would prefer people play by. And so that's what I think you mean by double transfer. So the important part is that you have to get scheduled, and you're only going to get scheduled in an embassy that's working well. So that's why you move to that embassy that's going well. Okay. All right. I'm hoping that's covered it. I've just spent a lot of time on that question, so now I've got a big number of questions behind. I always like to try and keep up, but I don't keep up very well. What about 61K Algeria? Good chance, no problem there. Is there still really a chance of DV 2020? Yeah, absolutely. We got Judge Mehta is one of the most prominent judges in this country. So to reverse him on his decision, it's not an easy thing. So Judge Mehta was the guy when we had a bunch of traitors that did some stupid shit on January the 6th. A lot of those people, there's been about 1,000 people charged with entering the Capitol building and doing various things and seditious conspiracy and all sorts of stupid shit, trying to support the orange idiot. And a lot of those people went before Judge Mehta, and Judge Mehta handed out some pretty stiff sentences. But one of the most important things that's happened in our country for a long time was put before, and many of those cases were put before Judge Mehta. So he's an important, powerful, very smart judge. I don't think he got it wrong, but we have to wait for what the appeal court say. So we just have to wait. Do I think 48K for Europe has any chances? Whenever I've said no, I've already explained that no, that's too high a number in my estimation. But that doesn't mean that it's got no chance. It just means that mathematically it shouldn't have a chance, right? And it could get a chance, but the chances for that number are very, very small, right? Because mathematically, all of the visas should be gone before you get to case number 48,000. And it takes something pretty weird to happen for it to get to 48,000. So I can't be 100% sure. And predictions are not normally great things to do, right? But we'll have to wait and see. But there's not much chance. Let's be honest. EU 48K, there's tons of cases in front of that, right? Do I have any predictions on how many cases will be assisted this year? I would say that the magic number, Tech Pirate, that we're looking for is around about 70,000 people being scheduled. People, okay, not cases. Last year in DV23, they scheduled about 75,000 people, and that's too many. And as a result, there were cancellations of interviews in September. The process finished on September 6th. So 75 is too many. 70 is about what they should be scheduling, around about 70,000. We're at about 26 or 27,000 people have been scheduled so far. Okay. Why did partly people miss 2NL and latest VB? There are many missing between them. Look, the month isn't over yet. Stop being silly, right? The month is not over. So Kathmandu hasn't had any 2NLs yet for March. That doesn't mean they're not going to have 2NLs for March. And frankly, Kathmandu is one of the best embassies in the world. So what the hell are you worrying about? Calm down, relax. You'll be fine. Where can I get a statistic of how many people goes in February in embassy in Europe region? You can go to Zarthisius's webpage. Let me share a screen and I'll show you that. Okay. So you can go to Zarthisius's webpage. This is where you can go. You can see all of the people, for example, for EU region, 9,829. This file, these numbers are up to date up until last night. So these are the people that have been scheduled so far. 26,950. I was just trying to remember, but it's about 27,000. So 13,000 cases, or 27,000 people have been scheduled. And remember, this is we're not done with the 2NLs for March yet, so this number will increase. There will be more scheduled interviews for March before the end of the year, before the end of this month. Case number is AF35K. Still haven't received, and I still think I will not receive it this month. Depends on which embassy you're at, right? So yeah. 37K Egypt. Well, it's not current yet, right? So I would say it's probably got a pretty good chance. I can't be 100% sure, but probably a reasonable chance. Because Cairo's performance, whilst it's not great, it's not terrible. It's not like they're doing no cases. I don't know whether, let me just show you this again. I don't know whether you can check this yourself. You can always check on here for an individual embassy performance, right? So yeah, so far up until they haven't taken any interviews yet for March. There's not been any scheduled, but certainly for 5 months they were at 330 interviews. Cases, that's cases, not people, so that would be about 600 people. So average around about 65 per month. That's not great. It should be better than that, but it's not terrible either. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I would like to see, I want to see Cairo taking about 200 cases this month. That's what I think we need to see. And that there's 7 scheduling months left for Cairo, right? Because they're going to take some for the month of March, and then there'll be 6 months after that, right? So 7 months in total. So 7 months, if they were taking 200 a month, that's about the performance I would expect. I'd like to see 300, that'd be great, but 200 should be reasonable. And if we look at some of the other embassies, like Casablanca, for example, Casablanca had taken 756 up until the end of February, and now have just taken another 160 for the month of March. If we look at Algeria, I think it's about 190 for the month of March. Yeah, 190 for the month of March, but hadn't actually done a huge number prior to that. So the big performing embassies, are taking around about that. If we look at Freetown, they're taking 60, had 140 up to there, but they're doing pretty well. You can see they're right up to latest numbers. Although I did point out that like if you so this is probably an extension of yesterday. Monrovia, Freetown, those embassies show me that the 40K case number for Africa was going too far, right? It's not so much Algeria and Casablanca, because those embassies are limited anyway. They're under the accept numbers. But Monrovia and Freetown are performing pretty well. You can see they're taking cases, but they didn't take many cases above 34,000, right? That's about where they stopped. If you look at Monrovia, same sort of story there in Liberia. They only took cases up to about 34,000 or so, just over 34,000. They took a decent number, 80, compared to what they've done in 5 months. So 5 months got them to 171, right? And then they took 80 in 1 month. That's fine, but they didn't go to 40,000 on the case numbers. That means that their capacity wasn't enough to take all the cases up to 40,000. That's why I put out the video last night saying I'm not expecting another big jump of Africa next month, because clearly 40,000 was too much for these relatively high performing embassies, right? Is that making sense? I hope so. Okay, is affidavit of support necessary, South America region? it's very difficult for me to say it is or isn't necessary. It varies by case. There is at least one embassy, Sri Lanka, that insists on it for every case, right? And then there are other embassies where it will be very rarely used, like in Sydney, almost never used, right? And then every other embassy around the world is somewhere in between those two extremes. Either, they very rarely ask for it, or they ask for it maybe in half the cases. But if it's needed and you don't have it, it will cause you a delay. So if you can get it, if you've got a friend or a relative that's in America, get it, because it will avoid you being delayed later, right? Okay. 15K in Ghana. When do you think I will get my 2NL looking at performance of the embassy? Let's have a look at ACRA. And ACRA have not taken cases for March yet, right? But let's see what they have done. They're backlogged back to less than case number 5,000. So if they only take 30 cases per month, which is what they did in the last couple of years, then we're going to see a slow sort of progression each month. And maybe they get to 15,000 by about July or August, maybe around about then. Could be as late as that. Now, if they suddenly start taking a high volume of cases, then it will be faster. I can't predict what they're about to do, right? I don't know what they're about to do. I can only tell you what they've done in the past and try and figure out if the behavior is going to change, right? What do you think about our case number AS 14,000? When will we get 2NL? It's not a bad case number. You have to wait and see when you get the 2NL. Hybrid, I have an issue when it comes to post a question on your blog. The question does not appear. Another question after releasing Feb VB. What's your expectation for Asia as per your latest video? When you post questions on my blog, sometimes they don't appear to you immediately, but they appear to me, right? And then it needs my approval whether that post is going to be shown publicly or not, right? I have to approve that post. So don't repost that same question 17 times. I don't need that. I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to approve the thing when I'm awake. When I'm sleeping, I'm not doing that. Okay, so I normally wake up, I come downstairs, and I start looking at the questions. So just be a bit patient. Post one time and be a bit patient. What's my expectation for Asia? Well, I have created a video about Asia about 2 weeks ago, laid out my whole expectation. I don't see a problem with their scheduling at this point, right? So look at my video for 2 weeks ago, and that's right on point. Could I explain more on residence permit as a precondition for visa refusal in case of transfer? There are some embassies that have asked for proof that you are legally entitled to be in the area where you say you are living, right? And that seems reasonable. Not every embassy will do that. Not every case they'll do that. But if they think that you've just tried to play the system, then they're entitled to say, well, hang on a minute, you told us you were living in Nairobi and you clearly aren't living in Nairobi, so why not, right? Did you lie to us? So, I can't tell you what the standard applied will always be. I can tell you that has sometimes happened. Fingers crossed for EU April jump. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a big jump for EU. Remember, they're not trying to get to 65,000. They're trying to get to as many as they need. And as many as they need for EU is probably about 35, 37,000, maybe 40,000. So yeah, don't think it's going to go massively, but yeah, a few thousand more would be nice. Is there any possibility 2NL can be sent 2 times? I think you mean 2 batches in a month. Like, so for example, if Nairobi already took 190, could they add some more cases later on in the month? Yes, that has happened in the past. It can happen. So yes, it can happen. I'm not saying it will happen at Nairobi or any other embassy, but it can happen. Oceania number is 1800. When is it going to be current, and what month will be my interview? I can't tell you exactly. Depends what they do. I think they're a little bit behind. So they made numbers current up to 1200, but they haven't scheduled cases up to 1200 yet. They've only scheduled cases up to about 1,050. I think it's going to take a few more months, maybe 2 or 3 months to get to 1,800 or so. We'll have to wait and see. When will you be interviewed? Well, when you're current is when you'll be interviewed. I'm already current and locked in ACRA. Can I move to another country and request a transfer? And what country do you suggest if it's possible? If you're current and you're locked in, now locked in means that you email KCC and they reply to you saying you are current for interview processing. Their reply says those exact words. You are current for interview processing, right? If that's what it says, then you're in a status called AV. And once you're in AV status, you can't do anything with your case. You can't unlock it. You can't move it. You're screwed. You have to wait for ACRA to do their thing. You can't do anything. And that's why I keep telling people, for God's sake, listen to what I'm saying. Because if you let yourself get locked into AV status at an embassy that's never going to interview you, then you have screwed your case, right? You've lost your visa. You've lost your green card. If you allow that to happen with everything that I'm explaining to you and have been explaining for months, then that's just sheer stupidity. You must not sit there and just watch this happen. You've got to take action, right? So, Kofi, if that's what they're saying on your particular case, depending on your case number, you are going to have to wait. But they're not going to get to cases like 40,000 in ACRA. That's not going to happen. Hi, Brett. I unlocked my DS260 form and submitted it after the correction has been made in a week. Is it possible that I will still receive 2NL before March? Before March. My case is current already. Yes, of course it's possible. Yeah. So unlocking doesn't cause delays. There are plenty of cases we've seen where unlocking made absolutely no impact. Now, if you unlock your case and you add something significant, like you just got married and now they have to process that new spouse, right? Yeah, that can add a little delay, but it's worth it. It's fine. Don't worry about it, it'll delay. But for most reasons that people unlock, there's no reprocessing at all. Okay. I've already answered that one. Are you from Nepal? 32,000? No. So if someone's from Nepal, 32,000 isn't their case number. You know that, right? How do you know the Israeli embassy is open, or should we try and move the case to another embassy? Yeah, I don't know what's happening in Israel. Go check their website and see what they're saying. I can tell you that. Just check here. They get very few. They get very few appointments. They've had 13 appointments so far this year, and they haven't taken any cases for March yet. But that doesn't mean that they won't. Just means they haven't taken them yet, right? Do you think the UK will have a high amount of DV selectees in DV 2025? I suspect not. Brits are, I don't know how well publicized the DV lottery was in the UK. So if not many people knew about it, then there wouldn't have been a large number of entries. The number of selectees is purely related to the number of entries, right? It's just a random draw. So the more people that enter from one particular country, the more selectees there will be from that particular country. So it will take a large number of entries from the UK to get a large number of selectees, and I don't know how many people from the UK entered. I've had a few people ask me questions about it, but and talk about it, but I don't know. I haven't had an overwhelming number of people talking about. I'm from the UK and I've entered DV 2025. I haven't had that, so I don't think it's going to be massive. But we'll have to wait and see. Can we guess the next cutoff will be EU 19K because the average number of cases is 1,400 for each month? You can sort of do what you're saying, right? You can look at the capacity. Like once we're finished with 2NLs for this month, you could look at the capacity that was made available. How many 2NLs were issued for EU? Then you could look at the SEAC data and count ahead and say, okay, they made 800 2NLs available for EU last month, so they should do the same thing again this month. But you just need to factor in that some of the 2NLs for each month come from cases that were already current the previous month, right? So how's that factor going? That depends on how quickly they're processing the DS260s. And I believe because there are so many selectees in DV 2024, that DS260 processing is taking longer than it would normally take. So we're going to see DS260s still not processed yet here in January, and they probably will be not caught up until February and maybe even March. So that's going to affect how the visa bulletin will work and how many 2NLs go to old case numbers each month. But so yeah, you can do predictions of your own. You don't need me to do predictions once you understand the basics. That's why I explain the process. Can you explain about case number 64K, my chances of being scheduled for interview in Liberia? Liberia is doing well, right? They're a little bit backlogged right now, but not badly. And your case number is not crazy high. So you've got a pretty good chance. You have to wait and see. Hello from Romania, Europe. Case number EU 29K. Do we have a chance? Maybe in July, August, September. Yes, exactly. In July, August, September. Yes, you have a chance. 28. Oh, horrific. 28K in Accra, Ghana. But I did ask KCC to transfer my interview location to Sierra Leone. Good. And they responded that it has been down. Down or done? Yet I have not received my 2NL from Sierra Leone. Okay. So hopefully they've transferred that, and then you just need to be patient, right? I've just shown the numbers. Sierra Leone is doing well, but I don't know when your transfer actually happened or when your change of embassy happened, whether that's been assigned at the appropriate time or not. Okay. Please say something about Addis Ababa. My case number is 294. Didn't receive the 2NL. Right. Oh, frustrating. I feel like I'm. What's the old saying? I'm beating a dead horse sometimes. So, Addis Ababa has taken 113 interviews for the month of March, right? Up until that point, they had taken 59. So they have improved, and 59 was over 5 months of scheduling, right? So they have improved a lot, right? But is it enough? No, it's not enough, because if you look at the numbers they've scheduled up to, they have not scheduled any case above about 5,500, I think it is. And so if they only schedule 100 a month, you can see how many, this bright green color is basically cases that just got scheduled. So those 113 cases are that bright green color, right? Mainly. You can see that if they continue to schedule at 100 a month, we might move up by 2,000 or 3,000 numbers per month. So with your case number at 29,400, you're deeply in risk. You're deeply in risk because you could already be locked into Addis. You could be in AV status. If you're not in AV status because your DS260 is not processed, then for God's sake, move, right? Listen to what I'm telling you. If you're not, you should email KCC asking to unlock your DS260. Do that today. They'll answer tomorrow or Tuesday. And they may come back and say, you can't unlock your DS260 because you're current for interview processing. And in that case, you're locked into Addis, right? There's nothing you can do about it. You have to wait until Addis get to your number, if they ever do. But they probably won't ever get to your number. So you ask to unlock, and then you figure out where the hell you're going to transfer your case to. You're going to have to figure out where you're going to move to. And you'll put your case at some other embassy before you get locked in to AV status, right? You're already current. So you have to take action on this like right now, right? I'm not messing around. I mean, unless you do this, you're not going to get a green card, right? So And if you're already in AV status, they'll tell you they won't unlock your form, right? If they do unlock your form, then you change your address to another country where you can move, Tanzania or Nairobi or wherever the hell you can go, right? Preferably somewhere where you've got family that can help you and give you somewhere to stay while you wait. And you move there physically, or you do the double switch thing, right? But you do one of those things immediately, otherwise you're screwed. Because I don't think they're going to get to case number 29,000, quite honestly. And the data shows why, right? Unless we start seeing Addis taking 200, 250 cases per month, they're not going to get to 29,000. That's the reality, right? So I hope you're paying attention. I really do. Can you speak about Algeria? What's the highest number that the embassy can reach in DV24? I haven't done that calculation. You don't need to worry about Algeria. Algeria is going to go as fast as they possibly can. Either your case is, is within the number range or it's not. If you've got a case number of like 110,000, you're not going to get an interview. I've explained all this in other videos. Right? Go look at my Africa video from about 2 weeks ago. I've spent some time on Algeria. According to your previous videos, it means Africa will not be current, or the visas will end before the end of. Yeah, again, I'm very clear. I'm very clear about this. Africa is not going to go current unless we see lots of embassies start to misbehave, and those embassies are ones that are already behaving well. Addis is misbehaving, Cairo is misbehaving, Accra is misbehaving, right? So there's some significant embassies there that are misbehaving, but Nairobi, that used to be misbehaving, is now leading the way, right? And so Nairobi by itself has probably fixed Africa. And if we start to see Cairo start to take a decent number of cases, that will be it for high case numbers in Africa. That's the end for high case numbers in Africa. That's all it will take is probably Cairo coming online with a decent number of cases. Accra and Addis will probably continue to misbehave, but Cairo is probably the key. And so if you start to see Cairo taking like 200 cases per month, that's the end for high case numbers in Africa. That was the only last chance. Okay. AF 54,000, almost a pointless question. Of course it's got hopes. That's just a silly question, really. Hello, since Nairobi is up to case 30K, 2NL, does it mean it's starting to get backlogged? So, yes. Let's have a look at that a little bit more clearly. I showed this yesterday, right? So Nairobi, Kenya, they just took 103 cases. They've taken 893 cases in the first 5 months, and they took 103. I wouldn't be surprised, I wouldn't be very surprised at all if they took another small batch towards the end of the month, because March, April, May, June, that's when we get a lot of scheduling. So I was a little surprised to see only 103 cases being scheduled. Then the other thing is that they only went to about 30K, right? Now, Kenya's not an accept country. There's no real reason why a high-performing embassy like Nairobi didn't go to 40,000, apart from the capacity, right? They set the capacity. So they've probably told KCC, we can take about 100 cases, and KCC is scheduled to that. But Nairobi could go back to KCC at some point this month and say, hey, we could take another 50 or 60 cases. So for March, so we'll do that, right? So we could see a second small batch of 2NLs for Nairobi, but we're not going to see them get to 40K, which is, as I explained in my video yesterday, it's one of the things, Monrovia, Nairobi, who else? Who is the other one? Oh, man, I can't remember who else was another indicator for me. Freetown. Freetown is another one, right? So those embassies are the canary in the mine, right? if you understand that analogy. They're the embassies that are not limited by an accept number. Algeria and Morocco are limited, so there's good reason, in a sense, why they didn't go to 40,000. I mean, mainly their cases are supposed to stick under their accept numbers, right? But for Nairobi, Monrovia, and Freetown, why didn't they go to 40,000? That's because 40,000 was too high a number, and that's why it's not so much a backlog as, in the normal sense of the word, it is a backlog, but it's because the number of 40K was set too high. That big jump wasn't justified. The capacity didn't justify that jump from 26.5 to 40,000. And so now Nairobi are going to say next month, hey, we can take another 150 cases, but that's probably only going to get us to about 40K, right? So when all the embassies do that, it'll mean that there won't be such a big jump next month. It'll be a small jump, and maybe even a repeat of 40K. That's quite likely, frankly, but maybe a small increase to 45,000 or something. So that's what's going to happen, and there'll be a little bit of a catch up. And as I say, I think we could see. I'm doing it again where I'm talking about the numbers without showing you the numbers. This is what I'm talking about, where Nairobi they've issued a good amount of interviews for the month of March, but that only got them to 30K. That's the problem there. So there's all that work between 30,000 and 40,000 that they will have to schedule those interviews before they schedule anything else for April, right? Okay, so yeah, hopefully that's explaining that. I'm hoping you've watched last night's video. If you haven't, go do it. It's important to watch. And there was two topics in that video. The first is this problem about people getting stuck at certain embassies. That's very important for people to watch. And the second is the general perception I have that 40K was overcooked. They went too far in the visa bulletin. Do you have a chance with AF19K at Accra, Ghana? You have a chance. You have quite a bit of risk. Any chance for OC 2003 for 24? Yeah, you have a chance. There's some risk at that number, but you have a chance, right? ICC, hi. Cairo didn't send 2NLs this month. No, they didn't. Nairobi 56K is my case safe. Yes, it is. Don't ask silly questions. Morocco, yeah, you're fine too. Come on. If you're under 60,000, you don't need to be asking me, right? If you're under 60,000 at a good embassy, Morocco is fine, right? Nairobi is fine. So don't bother asking me those questions. Why are some cases still at MVC? There will always be cases at MVC right up until the end of the program, right? Because some people don't submit their DS260. So those cases just always show at MVC. Some cases won't get current, or they're stuck in backlog queues. And so those cases, if they don't get current, they'll also show MVC. If they're at embassies like Addis and they're current and their DS260 is processed, but Addis won't schedule them, they'll show MVC, right? There's lots of reasons why. Do you think high cases will get a chance with a good embassy? The high cases have got a problem, right? Anyway, so, and I think I've made that clear. Can I make sure that my DS260 is good to go? I submitted it in July. Where can I verify that? You can email KCC and ask them, is the DS260 processed? They will tell you it's currently processing, or the processing is completed. They'll give you a response, and it's pretty obvious from the response what's happened with your DS260. Okay. AF 96,000, any chance of getting an interview? How good is Liberia? So Liberia is doing well. Your number's very high. And so you've got a small chance, probably very small chance of getting current. Like, it would be unusual. If I had to put money on it, if I had to, I would say you're probably not going to get current. Malawi embassy is just showing one case. Do we have chances to win DV? It's a very small embassy, so it doesn't surprise me they're showing only one case. It's, very small, right? I won DV24, case number is 57K from Egypt. Is there a chance? It's all about Cairo, right? How's Cairo going to do? We'll have to wait and see. If I add my wife as a derivative, should I add her last name as my surname? For example, adding her as Jane Jameson, as Jameson is my surname. Wow, you have to explain that. I know what it means to change someone's name during marriage. You didn't have to explain that. Anyway, what you should do is if you marry a person and in your country, let's say you marry a woman and in Western Europe and here in America, it's fairly traditional that the woman changes her name to take the name of the husband, right? We all know that. That's traditional in many places around the world, not everywhere, but many. And so in that case, the marriage certificate shows the new name of the lady, right? And shows that's her legal name now, right? And therefore she can go change her name on all sorts of places based on the marriage certificate. So the question to you is, what does it say on her marriage certificate? Did she take your name in marriage or not? You don't you don't give her your name just randomly on the DS260 because you think it's a good idea to do that. You look at the wedding certificate or the marriage certificate and see what her name now is legally. Okay. There you go. Mala, thank you for saying thank you. AF36K Napoli just became current. When will I get to an Napoli. Okay, you're AF. Okay. I don't know. maybe this month. You'll have to wait and see. It might be this month. It might be next month. I don't know. Still think AS 17,000 is at risk. It's at the beginning of the risk zone. So my thoughts from 2 weeks ago have not changed. My thoughts don't get affected by 1 or 2 visa bulletins. That's not how those long range predictions work. The progress month to month doesn't affect the long range predictions. AS 26K Jordan, please. Right, so you've got a slightly high case number, and it's above the range that I've said is safe, right? So it's somewhat risky. What about Cameroon? 54K. Any hopes? Well, it's the same pointless question that others have asked. Really, Cameroon's doing fine. You know that, right? And your number's not that high. We have an interview in February, Cameroon. I got married to my wife after the DV lottery results. Okay, that's fine. Particularly if you can show the relationship existed prior to the results being announced, and you should also go along with proof of the wedding that happened. You presumably had family and friends at a wedding. You've probably got photos of that event. You may have other documentation that shows you've continued a life together. You've begun a life together as would be normal in a marriage situation. Those are the sort of things you should just take to the interview, because you could well be asked for that. Okay. Is Europe going according to your prediction till now? Yes, it is. It's behaving as I expect it would behave. Any news for 21? No, I talked about that already. Do you have an update for Colombo progress? I don't. You can definitely have a look at the data on Zothis' wonderful site. Hello, dear. I'd like to thank you very much for the information you provide. You're very welcome. Somalian, case number 128K. Obviously, it's very hard to reach that number in 24, but I wonder if visa bulletin continues, like 14 to 15K each month. Do you think it may reach? No, it won't reach. And it won't continue 14 to 15K each month. That's the point of the video I made yesterday and the comments that I've made today. The 15K or the 14K jump was too much. And the interviews are not going to 40K. It was too high a jump. And so they're not going to repeat that jump again to make even more of a bigger problem, right? So, no. And and it's not going to get to 121k, let's be honest. That's clear by now, isn't it? 31k in Europe, how many percent chance this year? I posted a video explaining my thoughts on Europe, and in that video, my lowest imaginable number is higher than the number you've got. So, you know, if you watch the video, you'd have your answer already. Is there any explanation why Dar es Salaam embassy is giving a total of 160 DV, 160 to 200 DV winners in the last 10 years compared to our neighbors? Yeah. The number of selectees in a country is only impacted by the number of entries in the country. Okay. So if a country has less, if you've got two countries side by side, and one has 1 million entries and the other has 100,000 entries, then country A with 1 million entries is going to get 10 times more selectees than country B. It's as simple as that. There's no favoritism. There's no special technique. There's no magic that goes on. Nothing like that. It's purely related to the number of entries in a country is exactly proportional to the number of selectees, with the exception that there are some countries where their chances are lower. And those countries are countries like Egypt, Algeria, Nepal, Iran, right? Those limited countries, those countries that get limited in the draw. Those countries, whilst they've got very large number of selectees, they actually have less chance of getting selected per case than other countries in their region. But the law says that every country in the region should have the same exact chance of selection. So that's how it is until they apply that limit to some of those countries who have less chance, right? And, you know, I get lots of complaints and lots of questions about why is Nepal only having case numbers in the first few thousand or whatever. And what people don't seem to understand is they have thousands of entries disqualified after they reach a certain number. So they actually have less chance than other countries, right? Same thing I've explained for years and years and years. I do want to explain that in another video, and I will do over the next couple of days. I'll create a video for that exact scenario. Please, Simon, can you teach us how to apply for the green card after receiving a DV visa? What? So you've got your DV visa. The process to apply for the green card is this. Have you got a pen and paper? You get on a plane, you fly to America, and you hand over your brown envelope at the airport to the immigration people. That's it. That's all you have to do. You have to pay a fee, which you could have paid before you went or after you went. It's $220, but you get information on that. And there is no process you have to go through once you're in America. Just handing over that brown envelope with your information in it about your visa. That's all you need to do. That's it. It's as simple as that. Okay. I bet you were thinking there was some big complicated process. No. What was the highest case number for the 23 interview for the Oceania region? Oceania went current to 2,500, but that jump to 2,500 in the last month was unwarranted. And there were a number of cases that were scheduled up to that 2,500 numbers in September that were then had their numbers cancelled, right? So 2,500 was too high. Okay. We are 94K. We are all 21 well, please, sir, we are AF 24, 94K, very high number. And we are all 221 selectees in Tunisia. And I filled the DS260 for all the family members just after 3 days of the result. Do we have a chance of getting the second letter? Well, no. Your case number is 94K. That's going to be a problem. You're probably not going to get your 2NL because your case number is very high. Okay. Yeah. I'm from Somalia. My number is 121K. Yeah, we talked about that one. I'm sorry. Simon, would you rather a selectee send a request for transfer by mail or actually unlock the DS260, change address, and submit? You have to change the address. I've been saying this for a long time, Kofi. You have to change the address. And I think I addressed your exact point specifically to you with some vigor earlier in this call, right? You have to just change the address. You can't just you can't email unless you're from one of the homeless embassies, which is like Afghanistan or Moscow, or one of those embassies that is unavoidably shut down, right? You can't just email KCC and say, "Hey, I'm sitting here in Accra. I'm kind of bored. I don't want to wait for Accra anymore, and I want you to transfer me to this other embassy." They won't do it. They will write back to you and say no. And worse yet, they now know that you're looking to change your embassy. So if you're smart, you won't send that email that says, "I want to transfer to this other embassy." What you'll do is you'll unlock your DS-260 and you'll change your address if you're smart and if you can, right? But if you're already current for interview processing, they're not even going to let you do that. Okay. I'm not sure if you remember, we were chatting the other day, welding team lead. I might not be able to fit it all in when it comes to my secondary information, although I didn't. You also posted, Jack, a question to me. I answered that, I think, right? But anyway, so although I didn't go to uni, I did an access course for engineering degree. Yeah, you asked me this. They gave me the UCAS points that I needed to attend uni for that subject. Does that qualify me under education? Jack, I did answer this. I answered it on my blog. You've probably lost the. Let me just do something here. I'm going to show you, Jack, that I hope I'm not going to make a fool of myself, but I'm pretty sure I answered this exact question. Right. Okay, so here we go, Jack. You hadn't seen this, I presume, but this was your question about the UCAS points, the grading system, etc. I understand that because I'm British. I understand what you mean exactly, of course, and I answered that question for you, and I said no, it won't help. And the reason it won't help is that the access course is like a GED, which is the same sort of thing as an access course in America. It's for people that don't graduate high school in America in the normal way. They then go into normal life, and at some point they say, "Okay, I'm fed up with this being an adult without a degree. I want to go back to university, maybe an evening course or whatever." And so they go through a GED course and test to prove that their education is at the right level to get them into uni. That's the same thing as the access course. That is specifically called out in the rules for DV Lottery, and I've put the rules here, which is from the FAM, and it says equivalency certificates, which is what an access course is, such as GED, are not acceptable. Okay, so if you go down and not the formal course of education, if you then go back through adult education, etc., they will typically not take that into account. Your best chance is what you were talking about before, your supervisory position of of qualified technical people in your field, right? That's what you need to do. So, but I did answer you, Jack. You just have to read it. Okay. So, is it possible if I enter the US and fill in a social security request and send it to my friend mail, then go back home, sort out my stuff, and let the friend? Yes, it is. Yeah, you can do that. You don't have to wait for your social security number or your green card. Okay, going through China. Good. I have 28K in China. Got an interview. Good. Belinda, I suggest you move your case to Côte d'Ivoire, Gold Coast. But as you'll need some documents. That's why I did mine last year. Okay. Thanks, Evans, for giving that suggestion to someone there. 57K in Nairobi. What are my chances? Your chances of getting an answer are low because I've already told you and other people Don't ask me that question under 60,000 at a good embassy. You're at a good embassy and you're under 60,000. Same thing here for Cameroon guy. Favor. From Bhutan, what does my case number affect? Does my case number affect country of DV winner? We have 115 selected. Case number is 32,000. Any chance for interview? Embassy is Mumbai. You have a very, very low chance of interview because your case number is really too high. You know, you have to wait and see, but I don't think it's going to get to you. AF50K Montreal Embassy, should I be worried? By the way, submit DS260 early May. Many thanks. Nothing really to worry about there. I don't think Montreal are going particularly slow. You should be okay. Evans, this one's not quite right. So you're saying to Kofi that he can always unlock his DS260 and request a transfer. But that's not actually true. Once you're locked into the AV status, you can request a transfer, but they won't transfer it, right? They won't change. They won't unlock the case at that point. So you have to wait to be scheduled at an embassy, and then you can transfer. Transfer, the word transfer, is an embassy to an embassy, right? It's not involving KCC. So changing the address and changing the embassy that you're allocated to is what people should do before they become current, before they're locked into an AV queue. Okay. Okay. Case number 32K in Freetown, made some corrections in my DS260. Will I receive my 2NL, and is there a possibility for interview? Yes, yes, yes. You're going to get your interview. You're fine. One question. There isn't any interview scheduled in February at Georgia. They skipped it and they scheduled for March. What can be the reason? I don't know. Georgia Embassy didn't reach out to me and explain, I'm afraid. I don't have any contacts there, and I don't know, is the short answer. I'm confused that whether I include my spouse in the initial DV lottery form or not. Oh, God. I have added her on the DS260, and we have both interview in February. Will my visa be denied on an interview? This shouldn't really be a question, right? You should know whether you added her or not. But if your original selection letter didn't have her, and when you went into the DS260 for the first time, she wasn't there, then I would say you didn't add her. And since you didn't add her on the original entry, you will be disqualified at the interview, right? If, on the other hand, you went into the DS260 on the first time and they know her name, it's because you added her, as you should have done, right? But if you were married at the time of the DV entry and you went into your DS260 for the first time and she wasn't there, then it's because you didn't add her in your DV lottery entry. And fundamentally, you know that, right? You're telling me you don't know, but you know whether you messed up or not, right? And whether you were honest and followed the instructions or not. You know. The USA is the biggest lie in the world. What a moronic thing to say. What's a lie about the USA? It exists. That's just a moronic thing to say, really. Yeah, I've already answered that question. Talked about DV21. Evans, you're in Chicago. My God, it must be freezing your ass off there. Oh, can't imagine. I'm cold enough here. It's like 55, 60 degrees. That's already too cold. I can't imagine what it's like in Chicago. Okay, I did it. I was approved the visa, which document do I need to start working now? Social security number and US bank account. Yeah, so when you fill in your DS260, there's a question in the DS260 that says, do you want us to apply for your social security number? If you selected that option, then getting the social security number is normally automatic. It just arrives 2 or 3 weeks after your entry to the USA. If that didn't happen by 3 weeks, or if you didn't select that option in the DS260, then you have to go to the Social Security office and apply for your social security number. And that's pretty important. You need that really to start work. So that's one of the early things that you do. Okay. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here we go. This is our moronic friend Sahani. Let's see what he says. So the USA is the biggest lie in the world. High tax, high condo rent, awful healthcare, and redneck people resist people. Yeah, I mean, look, those things are true, but I can tell you I've made millions in this country. I've got extremely good healthcare. I don't live in a condo. My house is worth $2.5 million and only costs me about $4,000 a month. So quite honestly, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And it's pretty clear you don't either. So, what can I say? Now, not everyone's going to have my experience. I get that. Not everyone is going to have my advantages in life. But I can tell you that almost every penny that I've made and saved in my career has come from America. And so, not everyone succeeds. I get that. I don't want people to come here and not succeed. But your perspective, young man, is just stupid. What can I say? If both me and my partner win the DV at the same time, should we proceed with one or both? What's your advice? Normally, Joe, when that happens, one of you will have a higher case number than the other. That's one thing you take into account. You would obviously process the lower case number as a preference, but you also have to consider which of you has the better chance of approval as the main applicant. If one of you didn't go through a good education, for example, didn't get a good education, then that case might be less likely to be approved, and therefore you would prefer the other case. You can actually proceed on both cases and just see which one wins. But yeah, it's not that complicated. You can decide which one, which case to process. Okay. And it does happen, by the way, married couples or, sometimes both get selected. It does happen, even though it's rare. It does happen. Every year I hear from someone where that happens. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple more questions and then we'll call it a day. Okay, Accra MC, still scheduling. I'm scared I might lose the opportunity. Case number 9K. So you're locked into Accra, probably almost certainly, but you've got a chance at Accra because they are going to schedule some each month, and that might get to your number. So you might be okay because you've got a low case number. So fingers crossed for you. Can I please explain why Accra is not the ideal place to process your DV lottery visa? If they only schedule 30 cases a month, that's going to be 300 in a year, roughly 300 cases, which is about 600 people, right? And there's 2,000 people selected, so that's not going to be enough interviews, right? Now, not every case is going to be current. Ghana, funnily enough, although it's only got about 2,000 selectees this year, normally gets cut off and limited during the draw. I don't think they were this year. So I think Ghanaian cases probably go up to the full 120K. So since not all of those cases will go current, not all of the 2,000 will be entitled to interview. So 30 to 40 interviews might be enough to get to a reasonable number, but it's a very risky thing in Accra. The other thing is that Accra, in the past at least, have had very high rates of refusal because they see all sorts of fraudulent documents and that sort of thing, right? So, so it's a difficult place to process at the moment. I'm hoping it's going to be a more positive story, but I would rather tell you the downside and have you plan for the worst than tell you it's all happy and lovely and sweetness and flowers and stuff, and then you be disappointed. So that's why I'm warning people about if you've got a mid-range number and you're at Accra, then you've got some risk. Okay. Okay, last question. Does the counsellor ask questions from the derivatives too? And can a derivative translate questions to the principal applicant? Will it make a problem? No problem on the second part. The derivative can help with translations. Sometimes they ask questions of the derivative, but not often. And the questions are pretty minimal anyway. There's most cases, the interviews last 5 minutes or less. and there'll be 2 or 3 questions while the consular officer is going to look at your documents. They're going to maybe ask you a couple of questions like, where will you live? Where do you plan to live? What sort of work do you do or will you do in the States? When did you get married? Right, if the 2 of you, do you know anyone in America? Those sort of questions. Very, very general questions, right? They're rarely going to ask you, I see on your work history here, you worked in a shop in this place. What did the shop sell? I caught you out in a lie. They're not looking to do that, right? They're not that interested in your history. They just want to know that you've told the truth and you've been honest. They're not really looking for, to trip you up with some tricky question. It's not how it works. Okay. All right, everybody. I'm hoping that this video has been useful to you, that this Q&A has helped. If you still have questions, by all means, go on my blog, britsimonsays.com, and feel free to ask questions there, and I do answer, including Jack. I do answer. So go ahead and ask questions there. If I didn't get to your question, you're more than welcome to do that. Give me a thumbs up, please, on this video, and do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.